The said documentary forms part of a 4-part investigation by Al Jazeera's investigative unit, I-Unit, which uncovered an international gold smuggling mafia and money laundering racket operating in various parts of Africa. Friends from the media, of particular concern to us, and indeed the people of Ghana, is a reference to a relationship between the deadly racket and the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and other high-profile African leaders. In the particular portion of this new investigative documentary that has got many tongues wagging, the said Alistair Matthias is described as a Canadian citizen and a financial architect operating a gold smuggling syndicate in Ghana called Gold Trust. This Alistair Matthias confided in Al Jazeera undercover reporters who posed as Chinese businessmen about his constant dealings with our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Some of the underhand dealings this shady character reviewed in the documentary include how the Akufo-Addo Bawumia MPP government, for instance, can award his company Matthias Holdings an inflated contract worth $100 million, which he in turn subcontracts to another company for a value of $80 million, thereby making a staggering profit of $20 million on the contract. Friends from the media, the mastermind of these crimes further revealed how the padded amount on such deals is then shared among the parties. That is, corrupt officials in the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government on the one hand, and Matthias Holdings on the other. And at this point, I'd like us to listen to a short clip from the said documentary by Al Jazeera, which confirms the point I just made. First, the 8 seconds clip that talks about Matthias's relationship with President Akufo-Addo, and second, the clip that talks about the award of inflated contracts to his company. If we can get the audio, thank you. Under this criminal scheme, ladies and gentlemen, Matthias further undertakes to bank the share of his corrupt collaborators in the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government in offshore accounts until such a time that the money is needed by them. This is how grand corruption is created by elements in the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government who inflate contracts and then deposit the stolen funds in the form of commissions with this devious individual whose operations span across other African countries. And by the way, commissions in this gold smuggling, money laundering, and illicit business context simply means bribe. As if the above dealings were not scandalous enough, we further gleaned from the documentary how supply and procurement contracts are awarded to this lavish partner of President Akufo-Addo, who constantly returns kickbacks from these inflated contracts through their elaborate corrupt network at the expense of value for money and the good people of Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, the nefarious Alistair Matthias further confessed to how he manages to smuggle 1 ton of gold with a face value of $40 million from Ghana every month with the active collusion of higher ups in the Akufo-Addo Bawumia MPP government, and in collaboration with one Kamlesh Patni, an Indian man domiciled in Kenya, who is described as a grandmaster of the gold mafia. Can we listen to the the portion of the documentary that speaks to this. Gentlemen, this development adds to a litany of similar acts of grand corruption and collusion involving President Akufo-Addo, the Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and other high-ranking MPP government officials. Ghanaians have not forgotten about the number 12 documentary by ace investigative journalist Anazari Miyawanas, in which former president of the Ghana Football Association, Kwesi Nyantakyi, was nabbed in similar fashion, negotiating kickbacks from supposed investors for President Akufo-Addo and other government officials. Again, ladies and gentlemen, Ghanaians have not forgotten about the recent Galamsey economy undercover investigation by the same Anazari Miyawanas, in which a 7th Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Charles Adubuahin, is captured on video negotiating bribes in the form of appearance fees to the tune of $250,000 from supposed investors for and on behalf of our Vice President, Alhaji Bawumia. The question every objective Ghanaian should be asking is, how come the names of the president and his vice keep popping up in such shady deals and corruption scandals? Why always them? It could neither be mere speculation nor influence peddling any longer. This trend has now received such unenviable global publicity and must worry every well-meaning Ghanaian. We in the National Democratic Congress are deeply concerned about the damning revelations about our president in the latest documentary by Al Jazeera. The continuous naming of the president and his vice in all manner of bribe-taking syndicates must be a cause for concern for every patriotic Ghanaian who cares about the image of the presidency. Never in the history of this country, and I repeat, never in the history of this country has the presidency been so depraved and reduced a criminal mafia as we are witnessing today. As has become standard practice under the Akufo-Addo Bawumia MPP government, the presidency has kept a deafening silence on this matter in the wake of the damning revelations contained in the Al Jazeera documentary. Given the record and penchant of this government to cover up grafts, Ghanaians cannot and must not accept silence or the usual flippant denials emanating from the corridors of power. It is against this backdrop that the NDC hereby wishes to call on the special prosecutor to take keen interest in this matter and launch a full-scale investigation into this matter with the aim of prosecuting anyone found culpable. Additionally, given the considerable public interest in this matter and what it portends for Ghana's image among the global community of nations, we wish to call on Parliament, the representatives of the people, to set up a publicly televised and bipartisan probe into this matter in order to ascertain the truth. We in the NDC hold the view that the parliamentary probe into this matter is imperative to establish, number one, the number of companies owned by this shady character, Matthias Aliste, in Ghana. Number two, which government contracts have been awarded to companies owned by Aliste Matthias since their inception in the country? And number three, an investigation into this matter is imperative to establish the propriety or otherwise of the activities of companies owned by the said Alista Matthias, among others. We invite President Akufo-Addo, his handlers, and the people at the corridors of power to wholeheartedly embrace our call for a bipartisan probe into this serious issue. If indeed they so believe, nothing untoward has been occasioned in the state and that they have nothing to hide. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, it is our well-considered view that the explosive revelations contained in Al Jazeera's Gold Mafia investigative piece explain why the president's supposed fight against Galamsey has been a spectacular failure. It explains why Ghana has become the epicenter of gold smuggling in Africa. Galamsey was obviously bound to flourish under the corrupt Akufo-Addo Bawumia regime because it was the central source for illegal gold purchases used in this complex money laundering scheme, which has been uncovered by Al Jazeera. And understand Al Jazeera is in this auditorium today. We thank them very much for uncovering this scam, which scheme is being perpetrated against the state by powerful political dark forces in high places. As we in the NDC have always maintained, President Akufo-Addo's proclaimed fight against Galamsey was the biggest scam ever to be perpetrated on Ghanaians. Today, the NDC stands vindicated as a report authored by the German-trained cardiothoracic surgeon and former Minister of Environment and Science, Professor Frimpong Boateng, has all but confirmed our long-held opinion that there has never been any genuine commitment or any attempts to fight Galamsey by the Akufo-Addo Bawumia MPP government. The said report by the German-trained cardiothoracic surgeon shows clearly that the so-called fight against Galamsey was a charade calculated to enable top government and MPP functionaries to appropriate and take over the illicit Galamsey trade. Ladies and gentlemen, for the sake of brevity, we shall only highlight 8 of the several damning revelations contained in the Professor Frimpong Boateng Galamsey report today and deal with the rest in subsequent media engagements. Friends from the media, you would recall, and this is the first highlight, that President Akufo-Addo placed a moratorium on 1st April 2017, suspending artisanal and small-scale mining in the country for a combined period of 1 year, 3 months. Strangely, however, Frimpong Boateng's Galamsey report tells us that in 2018, when the ban on small-scale mining was still in force, this same Akufo-Addo government, acting through the Forestry Commission and the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, somehow contrived to give out all forest reserves in Ghana for mining activities. During the period that the ban was in force, more illegal miners, including Chinese gangs, invaded our forest reserves with the help of government officials and caused unprecedented destruction to our forest, water bodies, and the environment. As the former Environment and Science Minister, Professor Frimpong Boateng, puts it in his report, never in the history of Ghana have the nation's forest reserves and water bodies been subjected to such obscene rape and wanton destruction in the name of Galamsey as we have witnessed under the Akufo-Addo government. And here, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to show you a picture of River Ankobra taken at 8 a.m. today, 25th April 2023, at the Ankobra Bridge on the Azim to Elubo Highway. Just for those who claim that government is doing so well in the fight against Galamsey and the water, the turbid, highly polluted water bodies are becoming clear. This is, now go back. You can see River Brim. This is River Ankobra. We took these pictures this morning at 8 a.m. Go back to River Brim. And by the way, this River Brim picture was taken at Chebi, the hometown of President Akufo-Addo. Go back and go to the next one, River Pra. We took this picture at 8 a.m. today at Beposo on the main Takoradi-Accra Highway. This is River Pra for you. And you recall that we went with some of you a couple of years ago to this exact location for a press conference. And you saw the devastation of that water body, which the indigents of the area rely on as drinking water. And some of you saw the serious sicknesses that the people in the area, including children, are now suffering because they are drinking, they are being forced to drink cyanide polluted water, from this particular water body. We move to the second highlight. Fellow countrymen and women, the former Environment Minister and Chairman of the defunct Interministerial Committee Against Illegal Mining has provided further and better particulars of persons both high and low who are neck deep in this nation-wrecking business of Galamsey. The report specifically names appointees at the Jubilee House, such as the Director of Operations at the Presidency, Lord Comey. Can we see his picture on the screen? For those who don't know Lord Comey, that is Lord Comey. Charles Tego. Can we see his picture as well? That is him on the screen. We want you to know the Galamsey kingpins in Ghana according to Professor Frimpong Boateng. This is not the gospel according to the NDC. It is not the gospel according to Sammy Gyamfi or Joseph Yami. It is a gospel according to Professor Frimpong Boateng. The faces of Galamsey kingpins according to Frimpong Boateng. And so the report names Lord Comey, Director of Operations at the Presidency, Charles Tego, Presidential Staffer, and Frank Asiedu Bekwin, aka Protozwa, Special Aide to the Chief of Staff, who have been actively supporting and promoting illegal mining. We in the NDC have always known that the political economy of Galamsey in this Akufo-Addo MPP government is made up of the high and the mighty in places of power and influence, who will stop at nothing to sabotage any effort at fighting the canker because of what they benefit from it. Time without number, Anaza Rimiyawanas has exposed this greedy cabal. You in the media have done the same. Civil society and the political divide have all provided one form of evidence or the other. But President Akufo-Addo has simply refused to act. You know why? The president has refused to act because he is the chief mastermind and ultimate beneficiary of the nefarious Galamsey activities of his party and government functionaries. Ladies and gentlemen, I move to the third highlight. The Professor Frimpong Boateng report is also categorical about the very well-known illegal mining activities of former Chief Executive Officer of the Forestry Commission, the late Kwejo Owusu-Efie, aka Sir John, and his ex-wife aide, Charles Owusu, who doubled as Director of Operations at the Forestry Commission. The report avers that these two men, while at the helm of affairs at the Forestry Commission, did everything to sabotage the fight against illegal mining, and instead granted forest entry permits to small-scale and large-scale mining companies, including Chinese gangs, who were brought in to mine on their behalf at a time there was an active ban on such activities. And the report talks about how these Chinese collaborators of these corrupt, selfish, wicked government officials could even slap indigents in the communities where they were doing their illegal miners, subject them to all manner of inhumane and degrading treatments, just because they entered the forest reserves where they were doing their illegal mining. Ladies and gentlemen, number 4, the report further cites the unwholesome behavior of some members of parliament and government appointees who are all neck deep in promoting the Galamsey menace for selfish gain. Of specific mention was the activities of former member of parliament for Manson Kanta, Honorable Joseph Albert Kwam, who is reported to have used his position as then member of the Minerals Commission Board to acquire several dozens of large-scale mining concessions under the guise of community mining. He is reported to have sold these concessions to private entities, including his party members, for about 200,000 Ghana cedis. That is 2 billion old Ghana cedis per concession. Perhaps, ladies and gentlemen, I move to number 5. The biggest obstructionist to the fight against illegal mining, cited by the Professor Frimpong Boateng Galamsey report, is nephew of President Akufo-Addo, the one who many like to call the de facto Prime Minister of Ghana, Gabi Asare Ochredako. Can we see his picture? Yeah, thank you. The Frimpong Boateng report recounts how Mr. Ochredako placed a call to the then minister and chairman of the Interministerial Committee Against Illegal Mining to intervene on behalf of a company called Heritage Imperial Limited, which was destroying the environment and causing havoc to the River Ofen in the Krobo and Apaprama Forest Reserve in the Amansia area of the Ashanti region. The owner of the company in question is one Donald Ensua. You can see him on the screen. Donald Ensua, the famous man, who was co-owner of another company by name C&J Alaska, which had previously caused extensive damage to the Diaso Forest Reserve in the central region under the protection from men of the Ghana Armed Forces. Indeed, the report reveals how the late Major Maxwell Mahama lost his life while offering protection to mining concessions owned by this C&J Alaska company in the Dentraboase area in 2017. Our sympathies go to the late Major Maxwell Mahama's widow, children, and family. Having been successfully dislodged from the Diaso Forest Reserve by the task force of the Interministerial Committee Against Illegal Mining, the Frimpong Boateng report notes that this same Donald Ensua quickly formed his latest company, Heritage Imperial Limited, which has equally been at the heart of extensive destruction of the Krobo and Apaprama Forest Reserve in the Amansia area, operating with a prospecting license and a heavy military protection. And here, let me commend Multimedia's Erastus Asaredonko for the extensive work he has done in that area and for exposing the destruction of the forest reserves I've mentioned in the area, sometimes at the peril of his life and that of his crew. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, we are talking here about a company and its owner with a history of engaging in illegal mining under the pretext of prospecting. On 29th November 2016, Mr. Tony Obin, then Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission, during the NDC administration, wrote to C&J Alaska that the company was seriously engaged in illegal mining on its prospecting license. On 30th January 2017, Mr. Obin again wrote to C&J Alaska for undertaking mining activities illegally without obtaining all the requisite permits and approvals. Again, on 2nd October 2017, Honorable John Peter Amayu, the first MPP Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, wrote to C&J Alaska regarding the Dwabo concession and directed that in view of the fact that the C&J Alaska does not have a valid mining operating permit and that the ministry has not yet ratified their mining lease, they were directed not to carry out any mining operations in the concession until their mining lease has been ratified. Ladies and gentlemen, the mining activities of this company have resulted in the destruction of many forest reserves in Ghana and the diversion of the course of the Ofin River. Yet this is a company the president's nephew, Gabi Ochredakon, sought to shield and defend. What Gabi Ochredakon sought to do was essentially to use his influence in the Akufo-Addo government to defend a company which has been responsible for the destruction of the Diaso, Krobo, and Aprapama forest reserves. Mr. Ochredako's impunity must be called out and condemned by every well-meaning Ghanaian. Here is a company destroying our environment, yet enjoys protection from the military and no less a person than the nephew of President Akufo-Addo. And here let me say shame to all the media personalities who are shamelessly defending the impunity of Gabi Ochredakon. What is even more condemnable but unsurprising is the fact that Ochredako's behavior was said to have been reported to the chief corruption clearing agent, President Akufo-Addo. Yet, he failed to rein his errant and obstructionist nephew in. But ladies and gentlemen, how could the mother serpent of corruption rein in Gabi Ochredakon when his actions and inactions clearly show that he is himself an enabler, promoter, and beneficiary of Galamsey? Now we move to the seat highlights. Ladies and gentlemen, the Frimpong-Boateng report also fingered very senior and leading figures within the Akufo-Addo MPP government for allegedly acting in ways that essentially compromised the fight and rather promoted the activities of people who were engaged in illegal mining. Former senior minister and now presidential advisor, Honorable Yawosafo Manfo, for instance, is cited by the report to have allegedly used his influence to defend and whitewash an alleged money laundering activity by one Seth Mante, a journalist who was arrested for laundering money from the sale of seized excavators. And the journalist is the one you have on the screen, Seth Mante. This, the journalist did for and on behalf of one John Oforiata, the then regional security coordinator for the Central Region, and Horace Ekwewusi, former vice chairman of the MPP in the Central Region, who was indicted by Frimpong-Boateng for the 500 missing excavators. In similar vein, Mr. S.K. Boafo, a leading member of the New Patriotic Party and then board chairman of the Minerals Commission, was also cited for allegedly sabotaging the work of the Interministerial Committee Against Illegal Mining relative to the implementation of a successful community mining program. It is sad to know, our distinguished friends from the media, that the Frimpong Boateng Galamsey report identifies the Eastern region, President Akufo-Addo's own backyard, as the headquarters of almost intractable and uncontrollable illegal mining activities. At the center of these activities are several new patriotic party bigwigs and government functionaries, according to Frimpong Boateng. Notable among whom is Captain Koda of the Presidential Security Detail. You can see him on the screen. Captain Koda is reported to have demanded the release of excavators being used by illegal miners at Enyinem who discharge mining residue directly into the Brim River. The said illegal mining site allegedly belonged to the MP for Asenia Kroso Manson, Honorable George Kwame Abuaje, according to the report. You can also see the Honorable Member of Parliament on the screen. Finally, that is highlight number 8. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps the height of impunity was when an MPP youth organizer for Chedi was said to have been excavating for gold in the backyard garden of President Akufo-Addo's residence in Chedi. Yet, President Akufo-Addo got no wind of this from national security operatives who guard his house or his elaborate security detail. As I have already indicated, the only thing that can explain this scandalous revelation is that President Akufo-Addo is himself complicit in the illegal Galamsey menace. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen of the media, if there was any doubt that the so-called fight against illegal mining by the Akufo-Addo-Bawumia MPP government has been a sham, then this is the clearest evidence yet again. The Frimpong Boateng report confirms one truth, that illegal mining activities have been a free-for-all enterprise for many in the Akufo-Addo-Bawumia MPP administration. From ministers, presidential staffers, and other associates in government to national, regional, constituency, and unit committee executives of the New Patriotic Party, their agents, personal assistants, relatives, and financiers. Many are neck deep and are either engaged in or promoting illegal mining with reckless abandon. The details of the Professor Frimpong Boateng report are simply scandalous, scary, sordid, pervasive, and rotten to the core. We now know how the 500 seized excavators were sold by people entrusted to take care of those seized equipment. And today we are asking, if they thought we have forgotten, we have not forgotten, we are asking them, where are the over 500 missing excavators? Ladies and gentlemen, there is now ample evidence about how military and police officers and other men in uniform who were funded by the state and taxed to help fight Galamsey were rather used to protect illegal mining sites belonging to government and MPP officials and their foreign collaborators. It is sad to know that Ghana today has a commander-in-chief who sends soldiers into harm's way for parochial gain. Major Mohammed's death and the misuse of Ghanaian soldiers by this Galamsey government is another reason for a public inquiry into the Frimpong Boateng Galamsey report. The Frimpong Boateng Galamsey report has indeed shocked the conscience of the nation. And no amount of half-witted and half-hearted explanations from the presidency or government can whitewash this great infamy. President Akufo-Addo's complicity in this whole scandal has been further magnified by the fact that this stinking report has been on his desk since 2021, 2 years ago. Can you believe it? Yet he has woefully failed to act on sin. We are of the view that the only way to establish the truth and get to the bottom of the issues contained in the Professor Frimpong Boateng Galamsey report is for Parliament to institute a publicly televised and bipartisan inquiry into this report, which essentially is an obituary of President Akufo-Addo's monumentally failed fight against illegal mining. The special prosecutor on his part must act with alacrity by probing the Frimpong Boateng Galamsey report and prosecute all government officials, MPP functionaries, and persons who have perpetrated serious crimes against the state as contained in the report. The Ghanaian people deserve this probe because millions of taxpayers' money has gone down the drain in the name of fighting illegal mining. Now that it has been confirmed that all the so-called fights, Operation Vanguard, Galamsey, we are buying drones to fight Galamsey, I am putting my presidency on the line. Now that we have confirmed that everything was a charade, our nation stands united, crying for justice. Anything short of a bipartisan inquiry into this matter will be fiercely resisted. Because people who, for their own greed and selfishness, destroy water bodies, knowing very well that water is life. People who, for their own selfishness and greed, destroy our vegetation, knowing that when the last tree dies, the last man dies, are murderers who must not be shielded. Any country that has no firm grip over the protection of its forests, nature reserves, wetlands, and biodiversity is one that is doomed to extinction. It is sad to say that Ghana is fast approaching this scary reality under the Akufo-Addo MPP administration, who are busy destroying all our vegetative buffers and water bodies to satisfy their greed and selfishness. As a further step to back our demands, the NDC shall formally, in the coming days, submit a request to both the Clerk of Parliament and the Office of the Special Prosecutor to initiate the necessary investigations into the gold mafia documentary as it relates to Ghana and the Galamsey report of Professor Frimpong Boateng. And before I conclude, you can see a snapshot of the faces of Galamsey campaigns in Ghana, according to Professor Frimpong Boateng's Galamsey report. They are all there, drawing inspiration for the two people in the middle of the circle, President Akufo-Addo and Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia. Friends from the media, it is our fervent hope and firm belief that these very serious issues will not be swept under the carpet, and that the special prosecutor in Parliament will rise to the occasion in order to stop the continuous desecration of our presidency and environment by President Akufo-Addo, his vice, Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, and the ruling New Patriotic Party. Thank you very much for your attention, ladies and gentlemen.